Hello and welcome back to Dev Game Club, a weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers look at games from the past to discuss their relevance and impact today. I'm Brett Duval, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, a man asking himself why someone with hair this fabulous wouldn't be on TV.
Tim Longo.
And that could be you or me I'm
What
referring
hair?
to there. Yeah.
I mean, I'd get the joke
Yeah.
if it were when I was younger and I had.
That's true. You had fabulous hair once upon a
I-
time. Not as long
I
as
will-
Mia's, but
Not as long as Mia's, no. And maybe not TV worthy, but yeah, Psychonauts.
Psychonauts, the obviously one type of game. It's just the one game is what it is. It's just a very simple.
They tricked me. They tricked me. They've all of these years knowing many people who worked on the game, and they tricked me.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that.
Well, no, we should get right to it because it is way more. There are way more things in this game than are obvious. From the initial even level, the first level that you do with Coach Oleander, like you don't know that combat is coming. Etc. Not to mention the abilities and other things that we will talk about this time. I'm curious when you were like, oh, this is like it has this in it. I mean, there's a couple different things it could be that made you think that, but I'd like to hear what made you start going, wait a minute, what is this?
Yeah, I mean, it was basically the levitation. I think when I got to Mia's level, you start getting the merit badges, and then I got another merit badge, but I guess it really started. It's a combination of things. I think obviously it's probably one of the legendary and cool things about the game, and probably even more so about the second game, because of the genre blending that it has. And typically, most of the time, especially on the podcast, I talk about for myself enjoying when there is a lot of genre blending, or some, and when interesting ones are blended together. We've had many games that we've talked about that topic with, and I've been really trying to personally interrogate myself on why I'm not just surprised, but also like I'm having a weird reaction to it for this game.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's because we were kind of in and around the game kind of as developers, and again, I haven't played it till now, so the headcanon for me was that it was a platformer.
Mm-hmm.
Right, with a quirky story and quirky characters and art style and and stuff, and I kind of maybe know too much about how the sausage was made in the early days as well, and how much it changed. But then there's the developer side of me that's like, the interrogation of myself is coming from the fact that there's sort of, I wouldn't say they're production realities, but they're sort of, I've become. And maybe it's just being old and crusty. I think I'm oversharing at this point, but that I really appreciate.
We started with your hair, so
Yeah. Well, I just really appreciate like games that are developed in clever and efficient ways. You know what I mean? Because it's so hard to make them, and it's so easy to mess them up. And I don't mean watered down, or I don't mean like overly over reuse, but I'm trying to think of a good example. We've played many of them, and I'm just blanking it. But just like when you have the systems and mechanics and aesthetics using Clint's MDA, that those are all really like blended together well, and they all have, they're all kind of like prioritized in a way, right? Or they're all important and have their own fleshed out versions. And that is sort of true here, but this is also I can already see one of the most magical things about the game is that they kind of did whatever they wanted, and it's a lot of things. It's a lot of genres, a lot of subgenres kind of blended or mushed together. And for me, I see there's cool elements of that, but I also see inefficiencies. And from a player perspective, it's sort of like I'm having to learn something so far, and I'm still early enough in the game where maybe I get over this hump, but I'm having to learn new things all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's certain things I still don't even know what they are or what they do,
Yeah.
like the leveling up or there's a store where you're
Mhm.
buying stuff.
Right.
There's a lot of things I'm intentionally ignoring because my brain's already full. No
Yeah.
pun intended.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that one of the things I think you'll see, and we'll talk about the abilities, like I said, is that some of these things are overlaid. Like there's a kind of a way in which the abilities work that kind of makes sense, and you're like, oh, okay, like I can sort of see like, all right, so L1 is like for the sort of special version of that thing. So when I'm on the ground, I use L1 to do this. When I'm in the air, I use L1 and it'll do this. And it's because it's related to these things I can do. Um, and they're kind of always there. And L1, I think, is not a bindable button. It just works and it's kind of sort of contextual. So like some of your abilities are like that, where it's like, oh, now that I have this ability, I kind of got this additional, sort of twist on what I can do with L1. It's aiming when you're on the ground, if there's enemies nearby, but if you're in the air, it's and you have the levitation, it's a bubble that lets you float, etc. and catch air,
Yeah,
airdrops and
no,
things like
I
that.
see what
Yeah.
you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it takes a question out of the equation because the controls have some consistency
Right.
even when you change abilities. Yeah.
But then the part that can be a little mind bendy about it is like those abilities are also like Ratchet and Clank's weapons, where you basically have multiple of them, but they might they might not just be weapons, right? They might be like you can bind them to the three other, you know, L2, R2, and R1, um, playing on a controller, however you want, and you get to choose. And whereas in Ratchet and Clank, it's like, well, you've got one gun at a time, and there's a quick switch back to your prior gun, but
Yeah.
so you can go back and forth. But it's like, how do I, and as you get more abilities, you'll be like, well, how do I want to do things,
Yeah.
because there will be abilities that are like, oh, well, now if I want to be a more stealthy player, then I can do that. And one of the things I like about the game is that some of the other weird things that are going on in the game are to kind of reinforce how to look at the world, like just to remind you. So, for example, you have this other ability. I got invisibility, which I know you haven't yet because it's tied to a progression that you are not investing in yet, which is the sort of rank leveling of your
Yeah.
abilities. I'm like level.
No idea what
I'm
I mean, I think I know that you level up with the figments, but
the
uh,
figments, and then the cards and the psychors and the
oh, those also? Okay, yeah,
yes.
I
So
haven't even bought
there's
those.
basically
Yeah.
two economies. Well, so three economies, because there's also the mental cobwebs that you can clear, and those basically turn into cards with a special machine as well. So it's like
And then the arrowheads, I don't even know. Those are
arrowheads are currency for
coins.
buying stuff in the store.
Yeah.
So you need a lot of those, and one of the things you can buy is something that makes it easier to find arrowheads. With it, which is its own little kind of mini game.
Oh,
It's
boy.
a lot. It's a lot. But anyway, the thing I was about to say about there's also a scavenger hunt going on because it's camp, Tim. I mean, that's
Yeah,
really what it comes down to.
I
Is
saw right, that's another example. I
it's
saw it in the
camp,
interface and I'm
Yeah,
like, "Oh, no, what?"
yeah.
Yeah.
But you find those, and sometimes you need to use one of your skills on them, and that might be a skill you haven't used in a while. The fire starting skill lets you get one really early, for the scavenger hunt if you found it.
Mm.
Um, because there's an item that's like encased in ice and you can just, melt it
Mhm,
out of there.
mhm.
Can't get it otherwise, right? And then there's another one where there's a squirrel that has like a special acorn. It's like a golden acorn or something like that. And that's on the scavenger hunt list. And I'm pretty sure you need the invisibility to get it. I
Mm.
was headed over to do that because I was like, oh, I think that's what that's for. But like I said, it's the sort of thing where it's like, if you see one of those things in the world, you'd be like, oh, I can use this with it. There's one that you can use
Yeah.
like a
No.
kinesis with, right? So you can which is another rank based one, I think. I don't think you get a badge for that. Oh, you do get a badge. It's just you get it through ranking up, which you do with the cards. Like there's all these different economies that tie in to different parts of the game to kind of remind you, or to let them get more mileage out of it. It could be, you could look at it the other way. It's like, well, we get more gameplay out of having, why not add a scavenger hunt where you have to use your abilities to do different things? It's like, well, yeah, sure, why not? It's camp, So I sort of wonder to what degree it was a what happens at camp, kind of brainstorm, and then they just took all of it.
Yeah, exactly. I think, well, I mean, we talk about this day to day in our day jobs anyway, but like it's maybe it's just me being an old developer at this point, but I really appreciate. No, but I would say there's indie games, because of their own indie constraints, they have to pick their battles too. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And really double down on certain things. And the Zen garden of it all, which we know from Miyamoto and from Nintendo's approach of like it's almost more important about what you take out than what you put in. And I completely appreciate the effort and the development, just acumen or maybe brute force to just make this game.
Yeah, I think the latter.
It just gives me anxiety of like, I think so. Ratchet and Clank aside, I think is radial menu based, but generally, and this about our day job as well, about me, as soon as a radial menu is added, that is a sign to me
Yeah.
that it was needed for something that didn't need to be that way. You know what I mean? And to your point about, it's great that you can customize your experience based on your abilities that you have, but also because of the kind of game it is, if I'm in a level, I don't know if I want to stop and change my ability to go up a, geyser.
Yeah, but Tim,
If
you
I
do
don't
this stuff in Zelda all the time. It's like,
Well, but
I need
it's
the
a different
I need the
game.
boomerang, and I need the
And I
arrow,
don't,
and
but I don't like it
the
there
hook
either.
shot. Yeah.
No, I mean,
Okay, well, that's fair. Yeah. If you don't like that either, yeah.
Well, no, I think I think that's another good example where they didn't have their big flaw was that they didn't have or think of a radial menu. They could have done a better job with that. But same thing there.
Yeah.
The dungeons aren't the same pace as this game is, though, is what I mean.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's where it comes back to the genre blending. Genre blending's awesome. Once you blend two different genres together, though, that does create a new genre and a new problem set. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, if you're going to take this and this, and then it doesn't mean that you all the same rules apply to each of those genres as they did separately.
Mhm.
Now they're together. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm excited to keep playing, and I really want, I'd never in a million years. No, that's untrue. I was going to say never in a million years thought I would bring up Dark Souls, but here I am.
Yeah, right. You never thought that.
Never in a million seconds.
That never happens. Never in the million microseconds since the last time we,
But this is sort of how my hope for Psychonauts is. This is sort of how I felt about Dark Souls early on, because I probably talked about it in that series, and I had attempted the game a couple times before we played it for the podcast, but I never got over that hump I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's also blending some things together and doing it in its way. And if you don't get over that hump, I think that's why so many people put it down. But I did get over that hump with that game eventually, and learned to really love it and embrace it. And so I'm hoping that'll be the case for this. But it's just unexpected because there's adventure game elements in here. There's platforming elements. Now there's lock on and shooting.
Yep.
It
has an inventory.
Super Monkey Ball. There's an inventory that I didn't even know about, and I actually was stuck for a while on because I didn't know where my button went. You gave me a hint on that. So yeah, it's like I completely applaud this game. But yeah, it's just giving me anxiety now.
Gives you dev hives. No, I totally get it. I mean,
both dev and player.
It's hives. A game that took it. It took 5 years at a time where games did not take 5 years. I think like we said before, his models were things like Ocarina and Conquer. So
yeah. I think Ocarina's Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are great inspirations. It's just it's not an apples to apples. Yeah.
No, I don't think it is. I mean, I think he was trying to figure out, in the same way that they were trying to figure out Beyond Good and Evil, like
For
how
sure.
do we do this thing, right? And
Beyond Good and Evil is another good
telling
touchstone.
it's basically at the same time. I think Beyond Good and Evil is 2004 maybe, but
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly. I'd have to go look, but it's the same sort of time, and that game took around the same amount of time, a little less, I think, but probably a couple years less, honestly. No one quite stretches a schedule like Tim Schafer. But also, they were building their engine. Well, so was Beyond Good and Evil. It's
I
a tough
think Beyond Good and
time.
Evil took a ways, but then in a similar vein, the second one,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah. Cool.
So
still alive and well, I hear, but
but yeah, you can kind of see why maybe they could have had some challenges with their partners, right? Of sort of like, because they, but at the end of the day, like, maybe all is forgiven because the output. Well, I don't know. I can't speak for the team, right? I don't know if the team feels that way. The team may not feel like all is forgiven if it was a hard time, but we're playing a game that is definitely impressive now.
Yeah.
And all that stuff is, I guess, history, semi-ancient history.
I
so
mean,
maybe
I think they largely really felt it, right? But there was also still this hangover of like, this is how the games get done, right?
Yeah.
You were on a game like that, right? Before Starfighter, that was like a year of pretty bad crunch, and and of course,
we didn't know.
Tim comes from that tradition as well, right? And
for sure, no, very similar. No, I think there's a lot. You're right. That's a good example. There's a lot of similarities, and it was a time when, even then, even though there was a whole kind of generation before us that had already gone through it, it was still that time of like, we do not know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Like games, every game is different. Every game is reinventing the wheel. Like, we're not. And I think over time, maybe because of the pain that we went through, I just started to appreciate more and more, like I said earlier, thinking things through differently and more efficiently. I don't love the phrase smarter rather than hard, working smarter instead of harder, because I think it's oversimplified, but it comes to mind in this case of like, what are,
well, I also
hindsight's
think
also 2020.
Yeah, I also think with as many things that are in this, and with Psychonauts 2, one of their gameplay programmers, and I forget, I'll try to put the name in the show notes, but they did some like posts on their company blog about doing some of the movement mechanics, like how to make it feel good when you're on the levitation ball. And this was for the new Psychonauts, because they were basically starting from scratch on all this stuff.
It's an Unreal, right?
Because they were in Unreal, at that point. So, but there are other changes, I think, and I think that's one of the ones they were talking about anyway. But I don't remember exactly. But if I can find a link, I can put it in the show notes as well. But I was like, oh yeah, they have all these different things, and it's like each one of those took time to figure out.
Sure.
Took a gameplay programmer to figure out, like, and then took level design to figure out, like, and then the programmer working with level design to be like, oh, we need it to be able to float further, when you're in levitation mode, if you're hanging from the bubble, or not as long, or whatever. And how do we do that? And okay, we want to push things with airflow. Like, okay, well, that seems like that's not that hard, but to make it feel right and make it, translate onto the screen that you can understand, like, what's going on. It's like, oh, you can't just put a fan. You have to have some moving stuff in it, so you know how fast it goes. You have to, like, and you just constantly adding to any one of these things that they're adding in the abilities, for example, is like a whole bunch of stuff, and I mean, it's like, I mean, I kind of can't imagine what the code would have looked like. I mean, I just imagine it's just like edge case after edge case after edge case just handled in the code. Like, you press press the Y button or the triangle button or whatever, and you're like, okay, am I holding the cobweb grabber? Am I in a brain and holding cobweb grabber? Am I, like just this huge switch statement of like, okay, and do whatever, kick off whatever you need to kick off if that's the case, like an animation or whatever. If I'm in that, then I need to test specifically. Like this is something that comes up a lot with, animation heavy, movement games, like you've worked on with Tomb Raider, where it's like, oh, I'm going this fast and I'm hanging on a ledge and, whatever, like
it constantly. Especially if you're trying to go,
yeah,
exactly. Especially if you're trying to go high fidelity and photorealistic, you're trying to simulate what looks real,
right,
but still plays well. I think I've told the story, but it's like the concept of air steering versus discrete animation frames for jumps or something, right? It's like it's not realistic, but it feels better.
Yeah.
So you still have to make it look believable,
right?
Yeah, and to your point, I think this isn't. I hadn't intended to pull on this thread, but to your point about like the code and the development of each individual ability, and your press Y and what happens statement. That I guess another way to put what I'm saying is, if the developers have to go down this road of all these edge cases and accommodating all of this contextual things because there's so many possibilities, then that will translate to the player.
Yeah.
Because then the player has to then keep all of those in their head and be aware of them.
Right.
Then the designers have to reinforce them, like you said, with different ways to like remind you about them. So you don't put one in the end of the game and you haven't used it for 20 hours. If you're doing well, you're going to give them reminders along the way.
The cobwebs are a perfect example because it's like the natural thing you would want would be I hit the triangle button and it knows that I have the device to get.
Is that not how it works?
No, you have to go to the inventory and equip it.
Yeah.
And then use it.
Yeah.
And then you also have to put it away yourself. Like it doesn't just go away. So it's like a multi-step thing. And I think that's like trying to put some like rigor on it, instead of making the cobweb thing more aware.
Exactly. Yeah.
Of what is, what that you're interacting near it. Like basically the way I would probably want to code this game would be like something with The Sims, because you have so many things you can interact with. It would be like, oh, well then, it'll just be, I hit the Y button, the triangle button, whatever. Tell me what's nearby that I can do things with. Is there one that's sort of in front of me? Great. That means, this is the appropriate thing to do. And what things you consider are based on what's in your inventory. And like you would just skip all those steps. It's like, it's
you
come
at it from the opposite direction in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah.
But that's not the natural thing you would think to do. And like I pointed out, this was, a somewhat junior team, not entirely junior team, but a somewhat junior team, that matured a lot over the course of this title. And I'm pretty sure I can remember even in the Psychodyssey them saying, "Oh man, we never would have done it this way before." We've learned so much, from our prior games, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think what was I going to say that oh darn it, I lost it.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, that's all right. I did remember it because it is in my notes. So
okay,
I forgot to bring it up earlier, but to my point on the genre bending and to your point on picking out the web thing and then putting the web thing away, and this is going to sound like a criticism, and I guess it is, but it's more of like I guess I'll call it an observation, knowing kind of like the mentality and lineage from the leadership on the team, and obviously I'm maybe pointing at Tim specifically.
Yeah.
It feels like an adventure game,
right?
That happens to also have platforming and combat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the mentality is, I have an inventory. I have to take out a thing and try it against other things, like my waxed lips.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, and it's just a different way to think. Is my point.
Yeah, but I also look at games like, so we did play the first Ratchet and Clank, and we also played the the PS5 kind of launch window Ratchet and Clank, I think, right? Or the
remake.
remaster version of the remake of the original.
I mean, it was a full remake.
Yeah, right. So, but one of the things I really noticed, playing through both of them again, because of course I just kept going because I love Ratchet and Clank, was how much they streamlined. Like they had all those same problems with a lot of their gadgets, which was like, if you need to swing across a gap, there was the sort of whip tool or whatever that you could like, swing, attach to something just hanging in the sky and swing. And that was the same sort of thing where it's like, oh, that's just a weapon and you have to equip it like any other weapon. So you have to hold down the button, get the...
Yeah, you mean in the original.
In the original, right. And then in as they iterate on that series, it wasn't even in the second game, though some things happened in the second game. It was like, oh, it was like 2 or 3 games down the line. They're like, oh, you know what? We could just like do that for you. We know that you're...
Exactly. Yeah.
That you're pointing at this thing and we could just put a UI indicator up that when you hit this button, this is going to happen, right? And they had to devote a button to it, I think, in that case or whatever, because that just kind of changed the feel of the game. But you see those like small changes happen, and similarly in another long running series like Assassin's Creed has changed how it feels to move around in the environment a couple major times. One at Assassin's Creed Unity, and then I want to say again at Origins, maybe, where it just like it substantially feels different to do the sort of parkour, or the climbing, right? And it feels really different. And I remember going from like whatever was before Unity to Unity and being like, oh man, why would they change all this on me? I know, like I've played like 7 games that are the other way, or whatever.
I remember the discussions around that. Yeah, I mean, a long-running series is going to have that for sure. Don't.
But you're not. My point is, like, you're not going to get all of this right the first time.
No, and that's why I didn't want to call it a criticism. It was then more of an observation in that I didn't anticipate that in this game because, like I said earlier, I came in thinking platformer,
right?
But I don't. Right now, I don't feel like their approach was platformer. Their approach was more. Yeah, like you said, Zelda or adventure game. And I don't necessarily just mean point and click adventure, but like adventure-y, which Zelda falls into.
You've added an inventory, it's already like, I do think it's really, to me, it's really funny that it's like, it's like to some players. So to a player who's coming in playing a platformer, the idea that to go down into Sasha's lair, you need to go into an inventory to get a button so that you can, and it tells you, it's like, oh, it looks like a button would go there. And I remembered last week, you're like, I think I'm stuck because it says I need a button. And I don't have a button.
Well, no, I knew I had the button. What happened was I had when you get the button, it puts it in your hand and like physically.
Oh, right.
And then I like, you hit
the circle button, or some parkour will
put it away.
Yeah, right. Auto put it away.
But I didn't know where it went.
Right.
So
But it's like, so I'm going to out Tim Schafer on this podcast of something that I saw happen, because it's exactly this sort of problem, and it's funny that he didn't recognize it in his own game. When Half-Life came out, and it might have been just the demo. I was at that time I was like alone on the West Coast, so I was around a lot. Like I didn't have any furniture in my apartment, so I'd be at LucasArts, so I would have a computer. And so I'd be hanging out, and I'd kind of wander around to get coffee or a drink or whatever.
Bother people.
And he'd also be there, and I saw him playing Half-Life, and he got to the point where there's like the elevator that you need to get through, and you have to break the glass with the crowbar. At the very, very near the beginning, right after all hell breaks loose, and he was stuck. He was totally stuck at that spot, and then he finally thought to equip, like he had put away the crowbar. He equipped the crowbar, and then he figured out to break the glass, and he's like, "Ugh, puzzles." I was like, that's not a puzzle.
That's actually systemic.
It's the same problem, right? It's like, oh, you had to go to your inventory to get a thing, to use it in a way you didn't think of, right? Or even
And
that you didn't even think to
didn't
do
a
it.
good job. They didn't do a good job teaching you, maybe.
No, and they didn't but they didn't. No, in no place in this game did it tell you there's an inventory.
In which game?
In this game, in Psychonauts.
No. They tell you later. Ironically, they tell you later, but
that happens with a lot of things where it's like, that's, I think, a lot of the sort of crunch and crush of getting this thing done.
That could have been a closed bug, right? Somebody probably wrote that bug up.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, we're not going to fix it. Right? It's been 5 years, and we haven't fixed it by now. We don't want to make this game 6 years. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's funny. That's a funny story that I'm sure he loves that you told. But
he'll never hear this. Nobody tell him, please.
Somebody who built their career on puzzles. It's like. But my point is that, like, what Half-Life was trying to do and what Valve is trying to do is use systemic elements to create puzzles. Right. The gravity gun's a great example later.
Sure, yeah. I mean, Half-Life 2 is much more successful at all of that than...
Yeah. Portal. Why did I not think of that sooner? Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
I mean, I think to some degree that sort of hand-authored everything is the point of kind of their aesthetic. It's just an expensive...
It's their thing, yeah.
It's an expensive way to do things, too, though, and that, I think, is why they're, kind of in their troubles, right now. It's like the audiences are not, because the visual aesthetics and even the gameplay aesthetics of the games are not repetitive. They don't look like anything else. They don't have very repetitive mechanics in most cases, that they're already niche, and it's costly to make all that, so they've always been in a tough spot from the beginning, of their studio.
Right, exactly. They've chosen their path. Yeah. And it's I think it seems like some of the games they've made since this, they have started to find some production efficiencies in how they're making them. Even recently, right? Making, so that, it's interesting to see their evolution.
Yeah. And they've done this all
with, it has a lot, right. Exactly. They use scope to help this process, so they can still make really unique, purely unique games that no one else would make. So they're getting smarter, right? They're getting smarter over time, and they had to go through these challenges to get to that point. When I start, I might have said this before in the past, but when I start not necessarily bouncing off of a game, but like side eyeing a game. These days, one of the first things I start doing is kind of like a test on myself. And I do overly use Clint's MDA stuff as a really good shorthand for myself of like, okay, what of those three am I not feeling and why? You know what I mean? Like, and this is just if I'm playing a game for fun, right? It's like, I really thought I'd like this game. Why am I kind of bouncing off of it? And I kind of start interrogating myself in that way and for going through that filter. And for this one, I think ultimately I'm going to enjoy it and like it. And it's going to sound critical what I'm about to say, but for this one, I'm realizing that the aesthetic of it isn't maybe my thing or resonating with me that well. Both the visuals, but also the humor and the kind of like it's a little too zany for me. And so that, and then also the mechanics are a little clunky so far too, and which they're learning. This is the first one of these they've done, and we've talked about that some. And everyone, it's really hard to do this stuff. I don't know if I could do it. So it's like when I see two of those legs of the stool, you know what I mean? Yeah. Kind of like I side eye a little bit, and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe this might be a little bit of a slog, but I will say as a segue, the level design is keeping me going.
Oh yeah. And so far we've been mostly seeing pretty simple levels.
Yeah, I mean, simple but presented like the cube. The way that cube was presented was very cool, right?
Oh yeah, visually amazing. Yeah, and you've got the running around on the outside. Oh, but Tim, some stuff is coming. So
good. Yeah. I can't wait. I mean,
I think the next level you're going to be like, really? If I remember the order correctly, I haven't really looked stuff up. But there's been hints of things where I'm like, oh yeah, this can't be that far. This has got to be pretty soon. This next thing that I'm thinking of, and
Yeah.
you're going to be surprised sometimes by whose brain you go into. I'll just tease that
Oh,
for now.
interesting. Yeah. I
So
do love, yeah, I mean, I to your earlier point last episode, I love, as I've talked about, we both talked about many times, and I love the sort of any game that has a good cohesive, context for everything. And this one is so far like one of the best, obviously, we've ever seen. And the sort of level selection in the collective unconscious, where
mhm,
you're in that ring and you're like going to each door, and it's like it's just a level select, but it's was motivated, just explained to me, it
yeah,
fits in the world.
yeah,
It's a very simple thing, but for me it goes very far. It goes very far
yeah,
in
yeah.
helping me enjoy the game.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel that way too about a lot of this stuff. I mean, I talked about, um, the emotional baggage,
Yeah.
and I mean, the thing about that is that when you clear out the emotional baggage, when you get all of it, um, you get a special. Is that the one where you get the primal memory? I can't remember if that's from the vaults or the. No, I think the vaults are little cutscenes about or little slideshows, and then there's a special one that comes if you get like all of the emotional baggage,
Oh, really? I
which
haven't
is
only
like
guess
if
that.
you collect all of one thing or all of a different thing, you get different sort of rewards, and like the fact that I have a hard time remembering which is which is like one of the problems. Is like there's maybe
That's
too many
probably a
things.
sign.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of
That's
Tim's.
cool.
That's a Tim side eye right there. But one of them is like tells you about basically what this character's deep trauma is, and I mean, it's really
It's gotta be the
emotionally engaging.
vaults.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
probably the vaults, the memory
I
vaults.
love the vaults.
Yeah,
The little like old-timey sideshow stuff.
yeah,
And they all have been very interesting, even in 4 or 5 slides. Obviously, the artwork's cool, but it's like they reveal something like there was a death in one of them, I think.
there
It
was
was like it was,
a lot of death in Mia Vodello's one if you
yeah,
found it.
Mia's First Loss, I think it was called, and yeah, whew.
Yeah,
So that's a feat to be able to have a collectible do deliver something like that to
yeah.
you in such a simple way.
And
So
one of
they
the things I appreciate about all of that is that all of these things that are kinda coming up in this way are getting worked into the story, and this continues and is even better done in Psychonauts 2, in my opinion.
Mm,
Where I think they really had I mean, because they had been purchased by Microsoft, they actually had the wherewithal to really go all in, and do it, um, to really incorporate it entirely everywhere in a quite compelling way, I'll just say. So,
mm.
um, there's stuff in that game that was just like, I can't believe I'm seeing and seeing this in a video game, and because
Into
it's into, yeah. I
mm,
mean, there's stuff like that in here, but in here it's more of a I can't believe somebody thought to do this kind of treatment of a level, or something like that, just to be vague. Um, but in Psychonauts 2, it's like normally a game like this would be a game that addresses these themes would be like an indie game that not a lot of people play because no, no, capital G gamers are going to go out and play it, and this is like a major Xbox, Game Pass release or whatever, from Double Fine, which is attempting to cross it into that mainstream that is taking on really meaningful topics about what it means to be human. I mean, it's like Inside Out from Pixar. It was like,
yeah,
they were really good storytellers, and then they did this thing which like plumbed into what it means to be human in this way, in this deep psychological way, and you're like, oh, I didn't know a cartoon could do that, right? To be,
yeah,
kind of crass, but I
yeah.
sort of felt that way with Psychonauts 2, and to a degree this game, but much more so Psychonauts 2. So
Well, I mean, yeah, and the obvious thing that is sort of one of the cornerstones of this podcast is that Psychonauts existed, so Psychonauts 2 could.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
wouldn't really they couldn't have achieved the apex of that without taking this step.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. That's a very, not a lot of studios get to do that.
Yeah.
You know, Insomniac's another great example. The Ratchet and Clank specifically. It's
Yeah.
like they've got
Yeah.
so many times at bat that remake of the original, I could not believe how polished it was.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah.
I mean, it's like a perfect game.
Yeah.
For its genre,
Yep.
is my memory.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, that game is 100% terrific.
You don't get there on your first try.
No, you do not. No, and they didn't. And they really. But it was really wild to see it. Like, yeah, but everything was there. They just had to iterate and find it. And now you can see that if they had been able to iterate just in place, to some degree. I mean, some of that stuff is though you have to encounter your audience. Your audience has to say, like, I really hate having to switch to a different weapon to swing across, one of these things that's floating in the sky. I really hate that I have to, like I said, like that I have to go and equip this thing in the inventory, and then do the thing and then unequip it or, put it away or whatever with a separate button. It's like, who wants to do all this stuff? So I totally, it's an iteration thing of like, not seeing kind of your blind spot. Like your blind spot is, well, it's just like another weapon, so we just treat it like every other weapon, in the case of Ratchet and Clank. Or it's it's an inventory thing, so of course the way you interact with the inventory is that you take it out of the inventory, you use it, you put it away, which is kind of an adventure game kind of thing, right? It's like you go, you pick your verb and then or whatever, depending on the era of adventure game. So
and I think and in both cases, any iterations they do can also come from outside, right? And that's the other point of the podcast sometimes is like, what is the impact that something has had on something else? Like Insomniac could have seen another game do the contextual version. I mean, could have been Halo for all we know,
right?
Where they're simplifying things that used to be complex, and they're like, we don't have to do it that way because look at this, So there's always that every poet is a thief kind of stuff. But
and every podcast host is as well. So
yeah, that's for sure.
Do you want to talk about any of the specific abilities? Because you have a couple now. You can shoot things, you can levitate. What else do you have?
I have then I have pyro.
All right, pyrokinesis.
Pyrokinesis, that I haven't really applied other than the training that I can think of.
Okay, yeah.
And it feels like, kind of another key that isn't a key so far. It's like I'm just using it I tried using it in combat. Yeah, I tried using it on a boss and I was like, well, this clearly isn't going to work.
Yeah, it would not work super well on that kind of gargantuan boss that's in Sasha 9's level for sure.
Yeah, well, no, this was the tank.
Oh, you use it on the tank. Yeah,
I tried. Well, the reason is because I didn't understand why I got it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just happened to go back to what's his name Ford.
Well, it's because you had ranked up with Figments, I bet.
Well, I know that.
Yeah,
but it wasn't clear to me. I just went. I went back there because I thought that's where the store was, and you told me where the store was, but unless you had told me that, I still don't know where it is, or I wouldn't have. So I went back there, and then because I had leveled up, unbeknownst to myself, he gave me a new one. But because of this is a good example of like, of the usability of it all or whatever, play testing of it all. But because I just got that, it happened to be a system that gave it to me, meaning a leveling up. Yeah. But then I fought that tank boss in the game right after that I got it. Right. And so I made the assumption, false assumption that it's not a bad assumption because the game presented me this way. Right. Presented that because I just got the fire ability, I should use the fire ability on the tank. Right. But they're completely unrelated.
They are unrelated. And that is definitely one of the things that is not super cohesive is that there's this like 100 rank leveling up system, which is 100? Really like there's 100 levels, but like you only get things like every 10 or like at 10, 20, 30, 35, 40. Like I don't know how many maybe it's every 5. It's really like a 20-point leveling system, but there's individual levels in between. For what reason, we don't know. Just so the number can go up more often.
I think it's that's the reason.
Yeah, it's a feedback thing to remind you it's there. I do think when you get up to a level where you're going to get a new ability or an upgrade to an ability, he shows up on your interface. Ford Cruller does.
He does,
Yeah.
but I didn't know what to do with it.
Right. Yeah, and that
I
there's
was
nothing.
like, what does
Yeah.
this mean?
Well, so what you could do is call him on the bacon and go see him immediately, and then you could have him send you back.
Oh yeah, I didn't. I forgot about the bacon.
See, that's the thing.
I have it, and it was a funny scene, but I was like, "What is the bacon for again?"
Yeah,
I forgot.
It's for that, basically. I mean, he will also
bacon, but bacon is not. It's like when you go that zany, you then have to.
Well, the thing is, Tim, if you're having some bacon, you know what would be good with it? A crawler.
Okay, well then, yeah, sure, all right. I think of him as Ford though for some reason, like that's
yeah.
But
probably because
anyway,
you've read Hitchhikers, but yeah.
So it's that is sort of where the aesthetic side of it that I was talking about earlier, that leg of the stool impacts the other legs, right? Because as soon as you make bacon a way to get fast travel or whatever, to call somebody, because bacon doesn't normally do that, you have to remind them often and teach them often. And I got the bacon, at some point and forgot what it did.
there's a sort of get smart quality to like, well, why is the phone in his shoe? Kind of weird.
It's super clever. It's super neat and very memorable once you remember it. But I'm just saying the usability of it.
Yeah, there's so much stuff that it is hard.
It's not a phone. It's a bacon.
Yeah, exactly.
And a phone, I understand. So yeah.
And they don't call it a bacon phone or anything like that. So
yeah, if it was a phone in the shape, it was bacon in the shape of a phone,
you would know.
Maybe
then you'd know it was a phone made of bacon light.
that would be a.
You didn't even get that one. Wow.
No, I just.
You don't remember Bakelite? That's what all the plastic was in the phones.
Okay. Yeah. Right. The early plastics. You're right. Okay. Now that rings a bell.
That specific hard molded plastic. Yeah.
But a usability solution could have been in retrospect. Like, make a bacon phone. He loves bacon. Make a bacon phone.
Exactly.
Or like, what? Oh, it's a phone, right? Of course, I can call him on my bacon phone.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense as a piece of bacon. I think it was just a commentary back then of like everybody was adding bacon to everything.
No, I get it.
I think it was just a gag.
I got the gag. I got the gag. It's just I forgot because I'm me.
Yeah. Well, it's also hard. There are so many things coming at you. That and as you point out, the order of them is not clear, or in some cases they're not associated with like all the stuff that's with ranking up. Some of it just makes the game easier because things become more powerful. I think your levitation maybe gets more powerful through the ranking up, and maybe some other stuff, but I don't remember. Maybe you get more. I think, one case I actually got more shots with my, with the, I could have more shots from the, whatever that.
I think I have more health now too.
It could be. Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
And then, what was the other one? Oh, I just got the palm bomb, which is where you're, if you're in the air and you do a double, you slam into the ground like a butt stomp or whatever that Mario does. So his is like you punch down into the ground basically. I think I just got an increase to the power of that. So it's like sometimes it's just like it makes the game a little easier. You maybe, like you said, you get a little more health, another brain in your thing. It's a game with lives, which is super weird too. And then it's so it's just like some stuff is like, oh, this is a new power that like could increase your arsenal, but you need to know where to use it, and it's pretty optional in that way. Like there's not really any reason to use the invisibility other than in some scavenger hunt item, like I mentioned earlier. I don't think. I may be misremembering, but so there are of varying usefulness,
Yeah. Which, I mean, that stuff is Yeah, that's kind of my Zen garden point, is like the
Yeah.
more of those you put in, the harder it is to support them well.
Yeah.
So do less better kind of thing,
Yeah.
but I feel like ultimately my general feeling and takeaway by the time we're done with the series is going to be sort of, I mean, I have my plenty of criticisms about Bethesda games in a similar fashion. It's probably going to be a sum of parts feeling game to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can definitely, there's certain things that would push me away from it, individual things or individual, pillars or legs of the stool. But if you smush it all together, it really kind of overly and overall comes out on top. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how I feel about, you know, the Bethesda open world games and stuff. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of things I don't want to do
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
like, but when you put it all together, you're like, yeah, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, I have
So,
all these options. I mean, a
yeah, it's
lot of
just
them are not appealing to me, but
yeah, you
um,
just can't, or you
yeah,
can't refute it at some point.
yeah, yeah, no, for sure. So I think we've basically touched on everything we were going to touch on. One question I had for you is kind of like, what's going on with Raz's mind? Have you any thoughts or theories about that? Because you've got Dogen and his brain and the dentist character. Um, but also
Hmm.
like you're going into his own mind specifically, and I don't know if you just had if you had thoughts about that at this point.
I don't. Well, so my confusion with the question, which is a good question I'll think about as I'm playing. The last time I thought I was in his mind, it felt like his conclusion was that he was in Oleander's mind,
Hmm.
but maybe I'm confused about what happened.
Yeah, and I haven't played that part yet, so I will pay
Because there was a
specific
dark.
attention so that we can talk about that, because it's a weird, there's something weird going on there. It's just
Is
kind
there?
of like,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah. Well, so that's good. I mean, there's some depth there that is going to be
I mean,
unlocked.
the thing that drives me a little crazy about that level in particular is how many times it is like, okay, we're going to go in there. What you need to do is you need to go into your own mind and just like face your own fears. And you go in and it's like, oh yeah, you can't face your own fears now. So,
Oh, I hate that.
right.
Yeah, that
And
happened
it's
to
like,
me
so
with the
you,
levitate. I was like, oh, I got there, and you're like, oh,
yeah,
pulling you out.
same thing, right? Oh yeah, you need to be able to levitate. And that's meant to be that way. You can't, um, I don't think you can get the canoe without having gotten to that point, in your own mind, right? So like there are gates, there are kind of story gates. Not everything can just be pursued right away. There are things that you have to go and do in order. So lots of kind of
Mhm.
stuff that's layered over, but there are like touch points of like, and that one I don't like that of like, okay, now you're ready, and here's the second time we're going in, and you might retread some stuff, and then, oh nope, still can't do it. So it's I find that
Yeah.
frustrating.
Are you saying that there ends up being like a justified reason to be doing that?
No,
Because it
not
is.
not necessarily. I was just more kind of curious what you're thinking about,
Yeah, maybe too
with
early then,
yeah,
or
it might be,
or
or it
it's
might
going
be,
over my head.
yeah, that could be too, yeah, or I'm just not, I like also don't really, I didn't ask it in a motivated, I remember what was going on in Raz's mind kind of way. It was more like an open question because I don't really remember what's going on in Raz's mind. So,
Well, it's
um,
definitely some. I mean, he's talked about the fact that he's a psychic,
mm,
and even in his community of people, being the circus,
mhm,
he was an outcast,
right. But he
which
also
was,
was like, but I think my dad is a psychic. So
yeah. So that didn't come up, or
yeah,
hasn't come up, or I don't remember that. Yeah. So
yeah.
yeah, there's
There's
definitely
there's a lot,
some
a lot to talk about. Yeah,
parental issues
yeah.
to be coming, I think.
Okay.
Uh,
All right. Well, we'll get to those in a future episode. We'll probably go the other two episodes on this one. I think there's enough
I'd
still to
like to,
come. I
yeah.
really would like you to see all the levels, especially as you being a level design guy. Um, Mostly for the visual. Well, no, for multiple things. I won't even say for
Yeah.
any one thing. There's multiple interesting things happening in the level design, and I can't wait for us to talk about those. So
Okay.
We
Yeah.
will
I'd like to. It does
push on.
feel like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I could get it going on my Steam Deck. That would
Yeah.
make it even better, but we'll
Well, if
see.
you can. Well, we have an email. Let's turn to that. This was sent, of course, to devgameclub@gmail.com. This is actually just mentioned Bethesda a little while ago, so this one's kind of interesting in that respect. So if you would read that, sir.
Okay, Fallout TV question from James. Hello there, gentlemen. My name is James. I'm a prop maker painter for film and television in LA. I grew up playing video games, and you've covered so many great titles that I hold near and dear to my heart, and I thank you for sharing your insights and for doing the podcast. My question is, how do you both feel about video game adaptations to film and or television? I do a lot of work on for the Fallout show, including painting each and every one of the Pip Boys. Wow, James, good for you. That's awesome. And have been a fan of the game since Fallout 3. I do my best to approach all of the props with the fullest respect and consideration for the original source material, while also respecting the expectations and wishes of production. I have genuinely been a fan of the show, and I think it's done a fairly respectable job of adapting something like Fallout to a television program. But was curious what your thoughts were regarding the show and the trend of video games to film adaptations. Thanks so much for listening, and thank you again for doing the show. Can't wait for more Psychonauts. Cheers, James. That's amazing, James. Thank you for sending that in.
Yeah, super cool. I did actually look him up. James, I cut out some of your more identifying information, so I didn't know. Normally, we just read whatever's at the end, but sometimes it's like, I don't know if I want to point out who this person is, where they work, or whatever. But appreciate that. So I have a confession. I have not watched any of the Fallout TV show, which is funny because I worked on it. Although I do have ex-colleagues, who speak extremely highly of it, who love it. So I will say, on behalf of them, you're doing a good job. Your part in it and everybody else's part in it has been really well received by people who worked on the game, for sure. So it is, yeah, I'm just not a TV guy. So that's kind of the thing with me, is it takes me a while to get around to shows. I really love movies, and so I guess I can comment a little bit on
What about
movies.
video game TV or video game movie adaptations for you? Which you probably don't even watch.
I don't see too many of those either, but I have seen the second Mortal Kombat movie this summer, which I know
you're such a big fighting game fan.
Yeah, so because I'm such a big fighting game fan. It's really that I'm what's that guy's name? Who's the Carl
Urban?
Carl Urban. Is that his name?
Urban the guy that plays Johnny Cage?
Yeah.
Keith Urban? Urban.
Yes, it is Carl. You're right. It's Carl Urban. It was the Keith Urban that was throwing me off. Different Urban, but
he's in The Boys as well.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. So that guy. And so I partly was like, it'll probably be all right because he's in it, and he knows what he's, in for. And I will say, like, the things I hate are, this is predictable. I really don't care that they set up why they're doing this tournament. Like, I don't care. And at a certain point, somebody just says it's called Mortal Kombat, and then finally they start fighting people, and I'm like, thank God. Like, I don't need to know that there's this character whose world was taken over, and like all of that stuff I never care about. One of the things I will say about Fallout is, like, you're not trying to tell the player's story, because that would be, every player's story might be different. First of all, likely will be different, very different in playing one of those games. But I think one of the things I always thought, and I know some others thought about the games at Bethesda, was the world is actually, the most important thing. And taking that and putting a new story against that backdrop, which is really, really strong, I think, in particular in the modern Fallout games, and also in Skyrim, is like, the world is the cool character. Maintain that cool character, do something cool in it, and that's taking in all the different elements with the ghouls and all that stuff that the show is doing. I think, and of course the naive vault dweller and all that stuff, like those are keystones of the experience, and I think that's why it's connecting, is it's really delivering on that world and that stuff. I think that certain games are better than others in terms of having more to adapt from, and I'll have to go look and see if there's some others I've seen recently, but that's the one that leaped to mind because it was not that long ago that it was out. I don't know, do you have thoughts, sir? I'm going to kind of dominating that part of the conversation.
The Fallout show is complicated for me, I will admit, James. I'm sorry to say. I would consider myself I know, what is it? No Mutants Allowed. What's that website that you
That's what it's
hated, or
called.
that the fall?
No,
Yeah,
I don't.
I don't think I'm as extreme as those folks, but I probably am more of a fan of the originals than the Bethesda Fallouts. Well, to be fair, I've only finished Fallout 3 and played some of Vegas, but I haven't played 4. But I do totally agree with Brett that the thing I loved about, so I actually really enjoyed season 1, and the thing I loved about it definitely was the world. I think that as a fan, even of the originals, it was completely nailed, and like it had all the world elements that I was looking for, and I felt like the first season had a really good succinct kind of like arc to it, and I felt fulfilled at the end of it. Season 2, I actually have stopped watching.
Oh no.
And I think the best I can come up with, I thought a fair amount about it, and a colleague of ours from Twin Suns and I have talked to some about it too. The best I can think of is that it's really not as much about adaptation as it's running into just typical TV show problems once you go past the first season. If your first season is really good, you have to now fuel the rest of the seasons because you're now a victim of your own success.
Mm-hmm.
And season 2 is starting to try to do too much. It's almost like they have a checklist of Fallout things that they know they need to do. And so they just keep bringing in factions, and they keep bringing in storylines and characters, and it's getting too much for me. And I'm kind of like, I'm starting not to care about the characters anymore. So that's been it's been a weird journey. To be fair, though, I've had similar criticisms, say, for instance, for the second season also of the Lord of the Rings show on both Amazon, for similar reasons, where they had a good arc and ending in the first season. They might be on their third now, I forget, and then they're just kind of losing the thread because you gotta keep feeding the fire,
Yeah,
so you need a new storyline and a new character.
One I did see, right? So another movie and a show that I actually have seen, and is it 2 seasons I've seen, is The Last of Us.
Yeah.
And I
Which
thought
we did talk about.
Yeah, we did talk about that a little bit. I thought the first season of that was really quite strong, and it was strongest when it was not the game.
Yeah.
In my opinion. So the whole episode with what's his name, that comic comedian.
Yeah.
Was on Parks and Rec or whatever. But that guy, like that whole episode was amazing. Offerman, yeah, Nick Offerman. Sorry, I don't watch a lot of his stuff either. But I was like, that guy was. I mean, that was a really impressive episode of that show, which was like a tiny blip on the the game. I mean, the show kind of alludes to the fact that it's a tiny blip on the show's radar because of that, because of how it's presented. It's like all this stuff happened, and then they walked by and saw that these people were dead, which is pretty wild. And then the second season, I think, had a similar problem for me. That was like, how are we going to amp this up? And then they kind of cut it in the middle, of a cliffhanger, which I gather the game doesn't. That's one where I haven't played the game yet. So, yeah,
that isn't my memory.
Because there's a point where you go back and you play as Abby, right?
But you go back and forth is my memory.
Oh,
right?
okay.
In the game, you have much more flexibility. The developers have much more flexibility because they could go back and forth so much because it's so long.
Yeah.
But the show is shorter, so they have to kind of pack more in.
Yeah. I have 2 more examples, both movies, because I see a lot more movies. But Exit 8 is a movie I saw this year that was adapted from a I think a one-person Japanese independent game. And when I was watching the movie, I didn't know it was adapted from the game. And at the end of it, I said to myself, that'd make a pretty cool game. And I was really surprised when I got back home because I looked it up to be like, who's involved with this. And then I found out that it was in fact a game. I was like, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense. And then the other one that I was thinking of, which I'm curious about, is there's a Resident Evil adaptation coming like later this summer or in the fall, maybe might be October, from Zach Cregger's, who just had a hit last year with Weapons, also made Barbarian a few years ago, I think sort of around the pandemic. And I'm really curious to see that one, and it looks like it just sort of takes the general idea and just kind of uses it as
he's said as much. Yeah. I don't know how much you've read about what he's been saying.
I've not. I don't. I tend.
He's doing a lot of PR, but recently his most recent quote, I actually think I read this morning, is that it's like the movie is more like Frodo going to Mordor than it is a Resident Evil, and I think he's very much trying to respect Resident Evil as an IP, but he's taking the approach of more of like the little, not the hero like Leon, but you're one of the side characters who are living through the same things that Leon lives through, but you don't have Leon's muscles.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Good. Yeah. And I think that's
probably
because I've actually seen, one maybe of the other are Resident Evil movies.
Yeah. Those are doing heroics.
Yeah. And I hate them. There's some cool visual ideas at times where I'm like, oh, that was kind of a cool effect and thought of like, but then at the same time, I'm like, that makes no sense. Like, it's like, so it's like, because I have this game history with this series, I'm like, that just doesn't fit into my idea of what this thing even is. Right. So I'm kind of all over the place, I guess, as far as that goes.
To comment on your Last of Us, because I think and then we can end here because we could keep going. I could probably talk quite a bit about The Witcher, even though it's based on the books.
Oh, right, I forgot there was one.
Complicated because I would call it kind of a hybrid. It's based on the games and the books at the same time because they clearly have played the games, but the stories are more based on the books. So, and I haven't read all the books, but I've read half of them. But anyway, that's will take us too long, but I wanted to go back to The Last of Us. The interesting thing for me, in my opinion, for The Last of Us is agree with you. The first season was really, really good adaptation to James's question, and I think it used the greatest pieces of, inspired by the greatest pieces of the games, but put it into its format, which I think we can all agree that the best thing to do in any adaptation is to play to your format, and not try to just remake the other format. But the interesting thing that I realized after the fact with season 2 is that I think Last of Us 1 makes for a better adaptation as a video game to TV than Last of Us 2 does.
Oh yeah.
Last of Us 2 is just too... I love that game. I love both games, but Last of Us 1 is very like pure and economical. Last of Us 2 is like an epic. It is an epic journey, and I just don't think it's going to adapt as well, and that's why they did have to kind of cut it where they did, because I just don't know how else they could have done it, and I just don't think it's going to land the same way as the first season, because the second game is it's an epic game. And I don't know. Yeah,
it's on my list to get back to or to play, but I want to replay Last of Us because it's been however long. It's been a long time since I played that game, so I wouldn't mind playing it again. And I know it's not super long, relatively speaking, so it wouldn't be hard to do.
They have a good remaster too.
Yeah, that's what. There's a PS5 version of Last of Us, so I would definitely like to play that. That's one of those things I keep thinking about. It's like an ancillary Halloween time, October game or fall game to play. So, I will at some point if they put it out on disc. I will watch Fallout, and I look forward to at least watching the first season. But I will reiterate that a lot of my sort of artist friends and things like that have thought it was fantastic. And we're super pleased.
James, your work is definitely amazing
Yeah.
in that show. Like to Brett's point, the hero definitely is the world, and they nailed it. I mean, you nailed it, right?
Yeah.
I love that part of it.
Yeah. I know the guy, of course, who modeled the Deathclaw, and for both games, I'm pretty sure, because I think they were my recollections are quite different. And I mean, he's super. I mean, he could talk about nothing else at the time. So super pleased. So yeah,
that's great.
Now on all fronts. Well, thank you, James, sending that in. Keep up the good work. I look forward to additional work. It's very cool.
I'm gonna freeze frame on the Pip Boys from now on.
Make sure you can check them out.
Really scrutinize them.
Yeah, that's super cool. And of course, we love to get your reviews, and I talk about that every week. So I'm gonna, since we're running along, I will skip right over it here. But if we don't see them, maybe mail them in or point them out to us or something like that. We love to read them even on the air. We're on the web at devgameclub.com, and my co-host twitches occasionally at twitch.tv/
Tim Longo Jr. with the JR at the end.
Though you are taking a bit of a summer break, which I encourage. I think that's healthy. So we will someday return to hitting men at some date in the future. And you'll hear about that, of course, on our Fan Run Discord. There is a link to join that in the show notes. Our intro and outro music was written and performed by the immortal Kirk Hamilton, commissioned by friend of the cast Aaron Evers, and our logo, Discord, there's a merch store in there. Nobody makes any money from that, by the way, so it's just really a cost for if people want stuff. All of that by Mark Garcia. Have fun working on your snappy one-liners this week, and good night.
Good night. I wish I had a snappy one-liner for right then.
I do. I also wish you had one. That would have been perfect.